I'm going to talk about Andrew Lloyd Webber's Phantom of the Opera. Expend4bles 4, Hold Fast, Good Luck, and James is going to eat kind of fried rice thing. I just kind of whipped it up and brought out some Russian dressing for him to put on it. And I'm going to read a poem called A Visit from an Orange-Crowned Warbler, which I wrote May 31st, 2024. A little warbler in a tree was singing while he posed for me. He bowed so he could show his crown, and then showed yellow coverts down below his tail, the underside. He didn't even try to hide. It seemed like he had meant to be apparent so that we would see him there. He gave us every clue so we could both ID him too. Between the two of us we did, but by the time we did, he hid and didn't come back out again. We headed out to look, to then just face that dead and empty tree. We kept on looking there, but he was never there. That bird was gone. There wasn't any orange on his crown as far as we had seen, but by his name there must have been. His tail marks were a giveaway. I hope he comes another day. So that's, that's the first time I've ever, as far as I know, seen an Orange-Crowned Warbler, but it may not be, because, well, I was looking at him, I'm like, oh, he looks like a yellow warbler. It's just maybe a little bit more olivey green color, a little more gray or whatever, but he had the same sort of build to me, and I just thought he was a yellow warbler that wasn't as fancy looking or whatever, or looked a little different, until he showed the tail, and I'm like, well, that's different, so, but it seemed like he was actually posing. It seemed like he was, first he like bowed down, he's like, check out my head, and then he was showing off the tail, he's like, okay, you got it? And then he took off. And he's like, okay, you can get it now. And so then we looked in the book, and yeah, there he is. And well, he sang a bit, and so
he did just a little bit.
Yeah, and so James, I asked, well, what was what did this say in the book about the song? And I'm like, well, do you remember what the song was? And he's like, yeah, I think it was like,
I said, Frit,
or whatever. And the book, it was Chet.
It said
or
chit,
something
chit,
like that.
chit.
Something like that.
I said
so,
Frit. I'm going, well,
close enough. So,
the thing about consonants is
thing.
they say we actually can't distinguish between consonants. It's just what comes after them or before them in the form of vowels that make them distinguishable. So I don't feel bad about Frit. The important thing is it's one syllable, and
well, you can talk about the bird a minute. I gotta grab something.
Okay.
So you keep talking.
I'll keep talking or something. Anyway, I'm going to. That's about all I know about the bird. But we looked it up in the book, and its range is here in the summertime. It may have just arrived. And weirdly enough, it doesn't spread to the eastern part of the United States, but it spreads to kind of eastern part of Canada, at least up north. It's kind of weird.
With the bird?
Yeah, I was looking at it.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was looking at a lot of the warblers, and they're up north more than here.
Exactly. More, they're here in Alberta, but not really in Saskatchewan.
Just
the
for the
southern
summer,
part of Saskatchewan, southern part of Manitoba. In the southern part of Ontario, so it's
honestly, I prefer it up there in the summer too. If I were a bird, I'd keep flying. I wouldn't stay here. I'd be like, oh, it's hot and dry here. Let's go up north. So, what do you do, right? So, the Phantom of the Opera. That's what we're going to talk about a little bit, and I'll probably talk about this a little more later. But I'm going to. Okay, I'll sing a little bit so you know. In sleep he sang to me, in dreams he came, that voice which calls to me and speaks my name. And so James was pointing out, you might have noticed with the first two lines, in sleep he sang to me, in dreams he came. There's inversion there.
It's not serious inversion. You can put the in sleep and in dreams before, but it seems a little stilted, and that's not what you really want, I don't think. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay, and then later on, so you recognize the song that I'm talking about. This is the Phantom of the Opera song, And there's lots of different songs.
Before we move on, I
Okay.
want to say, in sleep he sang to me, in dreams he came. That voice, what? That is, presumably, it's the pronouns he come before the referent, which is not recommended generally. And I guess it's referring to that voice. So you could kind of say, oh, that's poetic. That voice is he, is the person whose voice it is. So it's stilted, the first 3 lines. Okay.
Okay. So then we go further down. I don't think you really have a problem with this stuff, right?
Sing once again with me, our strange.
No.
Sing
It's
our strange duet. Duet once again to me. Sing
so
once
right
again,
away
our strange duet.
So
with
at the
Is
beginning
it?
of that one,
Yeah,
you have some
yeah.
problems with that. Okay. Let's see. This is where you had the major problem. My spirit and your voice in one combined.
Yeah, my
The
spirit
Phantom of the Opera is there inside my mind.
and your voice combined in one. He does the combined. It's the end of a line. He's rhyming on it, I presume.
Yeah,
It's
inside my
rhymed with
mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And don't do it, please. Well, unless you don't mind people. People might even be impressed by it. Wow, that's poetic or something like that.
Well,
but
that's
they
the thing
won't
is-
be able to follow your thought.
Yeah, well, a lot of the time, people expect poetry to have inversion because some very, very bad poets used inversion in the past, and so ever since
became
that,
famous.
yeah,
And became famous.
and so ever since that, then people are thinking, well, that's poetry. Inversion is poetry, right? But it's not. It's
not even English. You can call it poetry, but it's not English poetry. I don't know what it is. It kind of exists out in a limbo of its own. But, or a lingo of its own. Don't do it if you want people to follow you. Follow what you're saying.
So, having said that, there's a lot of there's a lot of songs in here that you want to sing along with. You watch it and you're leaving going, or something like that, right? Well, you're doing the dishes and excuse me, I had the problem that the main Carlotta, or I don't know what her name was in this, had when she got replaced with Christine. So and a lot of this, I'm still squeaking.
Speaking of Christine, are you going to mention
How they
Christine?
put the accent wrong a lot of the time. So not all the time. Sometimes they sang Christine right, and sometimes they sang it wrong. Where is the accent?
Christine.
Yes. Where's the accent in Christine? Is it the Chris or is it the teen? It's the teen. So you can never sing it Chris.
Christine.
You can never sing it that way because that's wrong. It's just wrong.
Unless it's like a mom. Christine, maybe. Like getting mad at a kid. But
Maybe.
no.
Even then, I don't think so. So anyway, I love listening to this woman's voice. She's amazing. So it's really tough to find fault in this because you hear her and you're like, she's so awesome. But you think, like James said, would you rather hear her singing your lyrics or this stuff? And yeah, I write better lyrics than this. And
I said that first, so it's not.
no,
as though,
it's true.
Yeah, well, there we go.
It's true.
It's obvious.
It's obvious. And so yeah, I don't actually care for the Phantom of the Opera that much. I like the music for the most part. I don't like the Phantom of the Opera song. I actually don't think it's very good, even musically. I know there's a lot of range there and stuff like that, which that's cool. But there are better songs in this in the Phantom of the Opera. The Music of Night is better. Angel of Music is better. All I Ask of You is better. Think of Me is way better. So there's better songs in here. It's too bad that one main song it's very memorable. You'll remember. Dun, 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 dun. You remember that. But you might not want to for long. And anyway, I do like that. To try to point out some good things about the Phantom of the Opera and Andrew Lloyd Webber is, as much as I don't like the way he tried to rock out with this stuff, with any of his stuff, I don't like that. But I mean, it just makes it sound cheesier, honestly. But I think he was trying to make opera more accessible to everyone. Right, just people who, the woman sitting at home doing the dishes, and let's watch Phantom of the Opera before Hockey Night in Canada starts, honey. And so they sit down and watch Phantom of the Opera. Whatever, that's great. I love that they tried to do that, and I mean, honestly, they succeeded. They said, if you're one of the 100 million people who love the musical, you'll love the movie even more. So. And a lot of people did. I remember when this came out, people were just eating this stuff up. So, anyway.
Well, I mean, it's you, the several billion who've enjoyed your Mac burger, you're going to enjoy their fries. Yeah. And their fries are awful. The burgers aren't that fantastic either.
So, anyway, I don't have a voice like this woman. It's... I got, even if I warmed up and I practiced and I ate lots of Halls, candies, throat lozenges to try to loosen things up or whatever, I could not do that. She was awesome. So, I mean, she's worth watching it for, even if listening to. Anyway, well, both. I mean, whatever. They tried for something, and. I mean, I still put it top of the stack against this other stuff. Well, and honestly,
Expend4bles isn't an Expendable
enjoyed
movie.
It.
Oh, you kind of guilty pleasure right here.
Yeah.
Well, you know.
I don't know.
I mean, honestly, I kind of enjoyed the James Bond movies, but they're as corny as heck.
Yeah.
So
I remember there was somebody on CBC Radio, I think it was, giving a movie review of a Saddam movie. Or no, it was Stallone and somebody. Yeah, it was Stallone and somebody. And it might have been actually it could have been the first. It could have been whatever.
Yeah.
Because it was a while ago, so it could have been the first one of these things. I looked at this. I got this on the shelf. I get a lot of the movies I watch off the return shelf. I like to see what other people are watching or whatever. I don't. It's easy and it's there, and so I that's what I do at the library. I go, and this was there, and I'm like, 4? There's been 4 of these things? Like, I don't think I've watched 4.
4? So, that's 5 too many.
I don't know, but I kind of enjoyed it. So anyway, the review that I heard on CBC, I don't remember what movie it was about, but it could have been the first one of these. And the person giving the review referred to Sylvester Stallone and somebody else in the movie as Grumpy and the Mumbler. Do you remember that one?
That's hilarious.
It was so funny. We were both laughing about it. Because
now, which one is which? But Statham is Grumpy, right?
Probably,
the Mumbler is Sylvester Stallone. He mumbles worse than Marlon Brando at his worst.
Yeah, but then I was listening to Stallone in this, and at one point, near the beginning, spoiler alert, they kill him off. But
they kill off Stallone.
Totally.
Oh my God.
And you're like, what? How can you do that? Well, stay tuned for the end. God. So anyway, when that happened in this movie, like, I was listening to his dialogue. You have to listen very closely because he is mumbling, and it's hard to make out what he's saying a lot of the time. I don't know how many takes they have to do so that they can actually get something that people can sort of understand out of him. But he looks great, and he is not young anymore. Another thing.
I wonder if he takes human growth hormones. Anyway.
I don't know. But I was thinking, I wonder if he's had a stroke, and maybe that's why He mumbles along and you can't really.
No, he always mumbles, but it's just gotten worse.
Because he
Marlon
isn't
Brando,
young anymore.
No.
So
Marlon Brando
I don't know
mumble
if people
doesn't
should
matter
be
in
so
policy.
hard on him about how.
Well, he should tell people if he's had a stroke.
Well, sometimes people don't like to talk about that stuff.
Well, it's
You know,
they're
especially
going
when
to
they
be in
want to
movies
try
and
to look
people are
young and
paying for
everything
it.
like that.
They better
So it
talk
could
about
very
it.
well be
Yeah,
that
he's going to
maybe
get
he's not
judged.
the healthiest.
Yeah.
But he looks great. And I did enjoy this movie. There's a lot of blood, a lot of violence, a lot of fight scenes. Probably more blood than I'd like. There's a lot. It looks like there's a lot of heads exploding, and it looks like a red water-filled water balloon popping, like over and over. And it gets a little bit, I don't know.
Sounds
Maybe,
as though they discovered a new technique and they were just...
just playing around with it too much.
Yeah.
So, one thing I'm going to point out, an after-sex scene with Statham and his girlfriend. The woman is shown in bed wearing a violet onesie negligee from above. So, ceiling view of her laying on the bed sort of thing. And then the camera pans back up above the ceiling fan to show violet matching panties. Now, that might work if you hadn't shown her in the onesie. Because then you're looking at the panties going, well, whose panties are they? Is she just a really bad house cleaner? And these were like, she wore them one day last month or something with some other guy, and Statham doesn't mind or whatever. But anyway.
Maybe they're Statins, who knows? Yeah.
That's my assumption. So you know that they can't be her panties from that sexcapade they just had. Pulled off in a frenzy and tossed up because he showed her in the onesie. So
I guess these things happen.
We are left to assume that Statham was wearing the panties.
Jacqueline Kennedy one time said to one of their servants or whatever in the White House, this is back when Kennedy was alive.
Oh, sorry, little buddy.
She found some panties stuffed in a pillowcase. And she says, whose panties are... So this is in the White House. Whose panties are these? They're not my size. Oh, JFK. I'm laughing, but that's shameful. Wherever you're residing right now.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Anyway, so whatever. This was entertaining, and I don't think I've seen it before, but it's kind of hard to tell with these movies, isn't it? So that's it. And this one was just bad. Hold fast, good luck. Good luck getting through it. I wrote poetry the whole time this was on, and still, this was tough to get through. It was so bad. So that's all I have to talk about right now. You want to talk about something?
Yeah, well, I've got this stuff out here, the usual stuff.
Okay.
So this is this month's project. This is the last one of my two projects.
I keep breaking my...
Afrikaans Bible, all the way through it, 16 days.
So you can take off your mask. You have 10 minutes.
A French translation of the Bible. And I'm trying to get through it in the month of June. See what happens. Sorry about mumbling through the mask. At least I've got an excuse and I'm telling you about it. So I'm going to be yapping, spoiler alert, while I'm eating. You don't like it, you can tune out. I really don't care. Is it bad manners? Not bad manners here. Pretty good. Pretty darn good. So hopefully the word has got out to Karen Armstrong by now that I'm in the process of enlightening her and all the silly fellow travelers of hers, and there are so many of them hanging out on them. They claim to be hanging out in the left wing. And if you hang out in the left wing, you got to be for democracy. That's the way it was originally in the French Parliament. Parlement. The people on the left wing or the left side of Parliament are for democracy. Ones elsewhere weren't. You can't have democracy without freedom of speech. Are you listening? putative left-wingers, members of the NDP and the Labour Party in Europe, the Bernie Sanders acolytes in the United States. When you're doing your witch hunting, purifying the language of the tribe, shall we say, and I borrowed that from who said that? T.S. Eliot, Ezra Pound, who wrote that? You're not democratic when you're out there purifying the language of the tribe and witch hunting, making sure that people get fired, dismissed from university for saying what you don't like. So this isn't addressed to everyone who belongs to the NDP or anything like that. It's the head honchos, movers and shakers and things like the NDP and the various labor parties of Europe, things like that. There are many people who've been misled by the skunks leading or misleading these parties. What they've done is a bait and switch. In the 60s, it was all about taking care of indigenous people, former slaves in the United States, indigenous people here in Canada, indigenous people in the United States. And then all of a sudden, white folks around the world became responsible for the sins and omissions and whatever, and commissions of the ancestors of their relatives, their fellow white people. Americans aren't responsible for whatever bad or whatever good. Oh, I know that's politically incorrect, but there you go. The European colonialists were involved in the so-called Third World. They're just not responsible. Or, and incidentally, if you think that they're responsible for neo-imperialism in the Third World Americans, don't hand me that commie cant. I'm not going to try to witch hunt you or anything like that. I'm not. I actually believe in democracy and freedom of speech. So if you want to yip and yap like that, I don't draw my gun. I draw my conclusions. Unlike Mussolini or Hitler, whoever, or Goering, Hermann Goering, whoever said that first, or ever said that at all. I don't draw my gun, but I draw my conclusions. You dolt. So if you're going around calling American activity in the Third World neo-imperialism, you know how far back that goes vis-a-vis the Americans. 1961, and that's not necessarily the earliest. I'll have to drag out that quote. It's communist palaver. It's communist boilerplate. It's a quote coming out of the Soviet Union. 1961. That's more than 2 generations ago. That's a commie locution. Don't go blathering that stuff around me. I know better. I know what you're doing. You're a fellow traveler, a Sputnik in Russian, a fellow traveler, and newsflash, communism, or at least in its Russian form, died in 1991. Yeah. No. You're a fellow traveler for something that doesn't exist. So a Sputnik is kind of, I think the Germans call it a Trabant, or Trabant, probably Trabant accent. So it's something that they'd use that about a moon or something like that. So you Sputniks are circling around something that doesn't exist anymore. You're a moon of a planet that doesn't exist. So cut out that nonsense about American neo-imperialism. It's just communist cant. How much time? 10?
4.
I was having so much fun chastising verbally. I don't believe in physical chastisement. Verbally, flunkies who used
The term neo-imperialism. Unfortunately, what the world has to fear
is paleo-imperialism. The first empire, I gather, was the Akkadian Empire, and it was actually bicontinental. It actually went into Egypt. Check the actual records.
Don't check what the Assyriologists have to say. Generally, Assyriologists get things right, but as soon as they run, step their toes into Egyptologist territory, they go, "Oh, sorry about that. Sorry about that."
This is my Declaration of Independence. I've declared it before, but I'm redeclaring it for Assyriologists. You should be stepping your toes and your feet. You should be stomping all over Egyptology. I'm talking about figuratively, because I don't believe in stomping people. And particularly, I don't believe in being stomped by people. So you should be stomping all over Egyptologist's territory, because you've got a lot to say, or at least the Assyrians did. The Akkadians did. The Akkadians, I'm off topic, but this has to be dealt with. The Akkadians say, this is Naram Sin. He says, I took the king of Magan off in chains, something like that, to Akkad, the king of Magan, and he gives the name as Manu Danu, or Manu. Manu is closer to it. Understand, with these languages, cuneiform, if you run across something that begins with a U or a W, it could end up beginning with an M. We're dealing with a cuneiform script. We're dealing with another language. It's not that closely related. Egyptian is a Middle-Semitic language, and Akkadian is a Semitic language. Somewhat related, not that close. Who is that? Well, Weni, the last king of the 5th dynasty of Egypt. Okay, and what when they say Magan, he's saying that we know from the later Assyrian annals, Magan, or Magan, however you want to mispronounce it, was the delta area of Egypt. When Assyriologists, to please the Egyptologists, say, oh, back then, we know what it was later, but around 700 BC, we know it was the delta area. They're all scared. Their shoulders up around their ears. Back then it was Oman, and my response is, I've used this before and I'll use it again. Oh man, oh man, oh man, oh man, no way, no way, no way. So it's right in their records. And they took this guy off, Weni. It's called Wenus or Unus in Greek transcription, but it's in Egyptian it would be more like Weni. And they came up with Manu. So it goes. This is welcome to the world of cuneiform study. It's the last king of the 5th dynasty. It's important it's the last king. The Akkadians ended the 5th dynasty of Egypt. That's why in one of the king lists they've got, after the 5th dynasty, they got a big line. They're going, I wonder why. That's the Egyptologists. That's why. It would have been something like an interregnum, where the Akkadians ruled. They probably set up the first king of the 6th dynasty and had him as a flunky, or